Howdy. One point of clarification, I don't actually have an MBA. I got a master's in technical communication, which is essentially a designing thing. Just want to be clear, I'm not one of the MBA people, whatever that means to you. So successful design is actually really easy. All you have to do is pick the right thing to design, or the problem to solve in this case, if you're doing startup things, and then you have to design it well. So we're going to talk about 17 different techniques in the next 19 slides. We're going to swap the order of these and talk about good design first. You have to separate the function from the implementation. If you're talking about something that you can point to or touch, like a window or a screen, or if you're talking about things that are mobile or an app, that's things you can touch. You want to separate the function that you hope to imbue from the implementation. Otherwise, you get stuck in particular implementation modes and you lose sight of the functionality. You want to abstract your requirements. Just because there's a hot water pipe and a cold water pipe coming out of the wall, humans don't necessarily want to interact with it in that way. Humans want some warm water about the right amount to take a shower. So once you've abstracted those, in this case, a vector of hot and a vector of cold, you can solve the abstraction either in a pure mathematical sense, or you can look in other domains, other disciplines that have solved similar problems, see what the problems they have, and then you can take it back into the physical space like we've got here on the right-hand side and implement it any way you want to. Track your assumptions, because they are guiding how you think about the problems that you have in the world. Talk to your friends about them, write down the list of what you have, maybe try to disrupt them, maybe try to add some new constraints, try to disprove the things that you believe are true, and see how that changes what it is you think that you are creating. There we go. Introduce constructive constraints. We're all in love with the idea of people starting startups in garages with no money. And the reason that we think that that works is because they have a lot of financial constraints. They have a lot of constraints on the technology that's available to them. They come up with more interesting, different solutions than if they're just awash in all the money and all the resources. We know how companies like that work also. My favorite constraint right now is no drop-downs. Drop-downs are a horrible piece of UI, and you probably shouldn't use them most of the time. Work up here at the solutions end of things, not down here at the data end of things. Data is great. You can refine it into information. If you're really good, you can get some answers from that. Once you've really got answers that work, you can recommend actions. And if you really want to operationalize it, you can just make the solution happen. The glad push button here is pretty close. It's up to the action level. You're not telling people data. You're just letting them do the thing that they want to do. Oh, it is auto-advancing. Awesome. Architect for use. Menus are not set up listing things by price or by the ingredients or by the calorie count or alphabetically like you'd find in a database. They're set up for the way that humans want to use them. That's what you should do. Don't start with the database, start with the customer. Many of you have heard of Jesse James Garrett. Draw the map or the diagram. What this means is architect the thing before you start building it. You have to have a map, not of the system architecture necessarily, but of the flow that you expect the user to go through. Not by screens, but by function. If you don't have that, implementing it and then fixing it later on is an almost impossible way to get it right. Consider what could possibly go wrong. Do you remember Microsoft's Twitter bot? Horrible failure. Do you remember Google's April Fool's Day email weird autoresponder thing? That ruined people's lives. Don't do that. Actually think about how humans might use the system and what data might be coming into it. There we go. Oop, too far. Well, I'll just talk through this one. Design for human inaction. There we go. If your system depends on humans doing the right thing to be successful, your system's going to fail at some point because humans are human. You want systems that do the right thing in the absence of human action. Chernobyl was designed in such a way that in the absence of human action, it got worse, and then humans did the wrong thing. Something like direct deposit, where the money just ends up in your bank account with you don't have to do anything, that's a better design system. Okay. Switching, finding the right problem to solve. Things that bother you or things that you're just resigned to, that's just how it's going to be, those are targets for you to improve. Oh, now I'm really confused. One more. There we go. Root cause analysis. When something just happens, find out why. When you use the passive voice, ask who's doing it or what's going on there. The 5 whys. Keep asking until you actually figure out what the real root cause of the problem is, what's going on there. There we go. Analyze the market visually. If you have axes that are interesting and you know what matters in the product space that you're in, you can plot the current companies and see where the gaps are. I saw not this diagram, but a similar one where that whole lower right quadrant where all those internet companies are now didn't exist, and there was room to move into that space. When you look at it visually, you can see where the opportunities are. Predict the inevitable future. This is a technique called Wardley mapping by a guy named Simon Wardley. Basically, technology moves in very predictable arcs, and companies and entire industries that are built on components of technology necessarily follow those arcs. If you know how to deconstruct using this technique, you can see where the opportunities are going to be as industries and technologies change. Pursue bigger boxes. That's my little box there in Seattle. Your box is probably somewhere else, but the world is much, much bigger than that. And there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of perspectives, there's a lot of other boxes that are bigger and different than yours that could be added to your box, and you get better solutions when you incorporate other people's boxes that look different than yours. Those people probably look different than you as well. Work on stuff that matters. Tim O'Reilly's been talking about this for many years. There's a lot of ways to talk about why to do this and how to quantify exactly what matters, but that's a really good guiding principle just in general. Best recruiting line in the history of tech. To be noted, the person that Steve Jobs recruited with this line then fired Steve, but that's a different story. Don't work on sugar water. Do things that are actually going to change the world. To that end, Brett Victor is probably one of the very smartest design thinkers in the world today. He was asked by somebody, well, so what should designers be working on? What should technologists be working on? And he said, this is how you change the world. These are the problems in climate change, and there's a vast number of them that technologists can approach and can work on to change the world. So thanks very much.